Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3. Let's get some more. Clap your hands. Some more. Just give some more.
All right. Well, hello and welcome to my Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king. And we want to thank our good friend Kevin Rose for coming back again today to round out some of the Wisconsin whiskeys we were reviewing. Thank you so much for coming back, Kevin. We really appreciate your expertise in tasting and your thoughts in some of the whiskey. Now, the last one we're doing here tonight is we're doing a bottled in bond from Wollersheim Distillery in Prairie du Sac, which is also in Wisconsin. Mike, do you know a little bit about these guys?
I do know a little bit about it. So there's a long history, which I won't do it justice, but basically the area where they started at was I guess discovered by as things are discovered in a very old country. It was discovered in the 1840s, and it stayed in families and moved on, and then around the 1970s, the Wollersheim family bought that area, and it had been established with grapes. Well, they wanted to bring everything back, and so they got this guy, and my pronunciation I know will be off, but Philippe Coquard, who is a vintner from way back. He became the vintner there, and they were growing grapes and making wine and everything, and everything was all great. Well, they wanted to do more with it because he was experienced with brandy, but in another example of the government not knowing what they're doing and screwing people over, it was not legal, basically, in order for a winery to distill. Well, they finally removed their heads from other places, and a state law changed about 10 years ago or so that allowed wineries to start distilling again. So Coquard Brandy started up, and these guys have several brandies that they are making, and now they've got a rye and they've got a bourbon, and so they're relatively new in distilling. I think distilling started in 2015 of real distilling, so fairly new with it, but a big history, beautiful area, bistro, winery, and distillery all in this wonderful area overlooking a river.
Yep, and this is one that I thought would catch kind of Ben's eye when we started looking in the background, or if we had him on, because they really wanted to do brandy. Was kind of the first thing he really wanted to do. Was like, listen, I want to make brandy. It was like, well, you can't. It's like, all right, we're gonna make wine then. Like we were already doing it, but this is not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
This is always in the back burner. And once it got lifted, it was like, we're gonna run on this. And
yeah, we'll let you drink 5 bottles of wine at dinner, but God forbid you have any brandy.
And he also likes making grappa and other stuff as well too, that not everyone jumps on board with right away. So it is pretty neat. And Tom is the head distiller there. We met Tom at Distill America last year, Mike and I did, where we got to try the one we're trying tonight, but at cast strength. It was personal bottle, if you will, that some people bring to some whiskey tasting events. A lot of people have a bottle behind the table of something that might not have come out, but they have it in mind. So this is the bottled in bond version. They do have a cast strength. Like I said, it's 65% instead of 50, so it is quite a big jump up when you get to that realm. But also they did do Wisconsin's very first bottled in bond of brandy this past year as well too. So what they're looking to do is kind of basically lay out vintages for the brandy as they're going forward, kind of year by year, kind of applying the bottled in bond theory to that. And if I remember, it was one of the first things we had, but it was also probably one of the top things I had that day but a little bit higher cast strength on what it is.
Yeah, when someone reaches behind them to grab something and it's labeled with a Post-it note, you know it's going to be really good. Because we all looked at each other like, I think this is going to be good. And it was really good.
So that's kind of a little bit about what's going on here. Really good winery, and I was going to say, and a really neat distillery. But this is, I think, our Wisconsin second bottled in bond bourbon here. So Besides everything else, I'm getting like a little bit of a more earthy kind of cellar, kind of feel more like a dunnage smell maybe, than I am like a standard warehouse in my mind.
Have you seen Anchorman?
Yes.
Yes.
Several times.
Leather-bound books.
Yes.
There's some leather and there's some mustiness to it, so it's like old books, old leather-bound books.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of cinnamon. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I just a little bit of cinnamon and some corn too. So
I am all over apples on this one. Candied apples, caramel apples, fermented apples. There's even a like a fruity apple and yeast kind of note. When I first went into it, that actually reminded me of like a malt liquor. I think crack open a King's Cobra or something. You got that kind of yeasty, fruity malt kind of note coming off the top, and that's exactly what it reminded me of.
What type of liquor was it?
King Cobra.
Okay,
there you go. Hey, crack an OE, crack a King Cobra, whatever's your game. But
if Sex Panther had a liquor.
Now, who thinks that should be Spirits of French Lick's next release?
Sex Panther.
Sex Panther.
There you go.
They'd be ballsy enough to put that on the label. I don't know if I can promote it. Facebook is kind of creepy about those weird things now.
I'm getting a lot of different, from sweet candied apple down to like a, rotting fermented apples on the ground.
That's just what I was going to say. I'm like almost a fermented apple on the ground.
And even a bit of that kind of a yeast note to it.
And it kind of, in a way, it reminds me of, it's kind of the after smell of, like if it's smoking a pork shoulder and inject it with apple juice. Mm-hmm. But then the runoff of the apple juice and the rub and everything else, it's all over the pan. You can kind of smell that. Because it's very appley and, I don't know, it seems kind of a little meaty, but not really. But it is.
There's a depth to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're saying meaty, I get what you're saying, but I'm not getting like a meat. There's like a depth or a level to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and I'm way too far. There's like a layer of corn underneath there as well. Uh-huh. Corn and yeast, a fruity corn note.
Well, you mentioned like the dunnage. It's almost like it absorbed its environment.
Yeah.
In there.
Just a hint of brown sugar. And cinnamon.
The brown sugar, the cinnamon.
Mm.
Maybe a little bit of clove.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you've had like fried apples, the brown sugar, the
butter,
cinnamon,
cinnamon. Yeah. Sorry, man. We need to start working out on the show. We are using Fat Boy references. I know that is the best to do, but I mean, I was digging it too. I was like, ooh, yeah, an apple pie just on top with cinnamon. This is like just the right type of unsalted butter.
Yeah.
But I was too far into making it.
I tried to go the literary route with the leather-bound books, and that didn't really stick. So
no, that part is in there. There's that. The kind of earthiness in the leather-bound books, I totally did.
But it kind of fades. It fades
does.
on the nose the longer it sits in the glass.
Yeah.
And it gives way to that apple, fermented apple.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go back in here. When I had this, like, to me, part of it for me kind of drank a little bit like an apple brandy, rather than like a whiskey for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is what I was getting a little bit off of it. So.
Which, I mean, considering where they're at, what they're doing.
Sure. Well, they're probably distilling it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what gets me curious: what kind of yeast strain or strains they're using to get these apple and these fruit notes coming off like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's delicious.
It really is.
Yeah.
First one had a little bit more heat and kick on it for me. Second and third one, I'm going back here, that really kind of died out. First one had a little bit of punch, not a lot though.
Yeah, this is like apple and if I were to take a bite of fried apple like you're talking about, and I toss in a couple of candy cinnamon red hots to go along with it.
Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of dark cocoa, dark chocolate in there.
Dark chocolate, and it sounds weird. See if anyone like halfway through gets like a little bit of like heather, just like this.
I get like an earthy cinnamon, almost like fresh shaved cinnamon stick.
Ooh.
Yeah, like
on
we
the,
said,
on the
not
back
the,
end,
not,
back of the
not
tongue.
the crappy cinnamon, but the good
Yeah.
cinnamon.
Mm-hmm.
The good cinnamon from the back of the cupboard.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be hard to see, but it's actually pretty oily on the glass here. It takes a while to start coming down.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it has some decent legs when it does. But I was gonna say it doesn't really feel too over oily or viscousy on the tongue when I'm drinking it.
No.
It's like medium at best.
Do you know what the mash bill on this is? Because it's starting to remind me a little bit of Maker's. Is this a weeded? Just some of the cinnamon notes coming in on there. It just reminds me of some weeded bourbons that I've had.
Corn, rye, and malt.
Okay.
White corn. Sorry, white corn, rye, and malt.
White corn. Interesting.
Mhm. And that might be something like that little sweetness, but like a cleaner feel even.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm thinking from the white corn. I'm guessing it might even have like a little bit less flavor. And now ever since we started talking to Todd Leopold, my head's all on fucking starch. How much starch is in this shit? Everything is. I started looking stuff up on the internet the other day. I was like, well, how much starch is in this? I'm like, well, would it work this way? Could we cheat it on a 3-chamber still? You know, I got almost a little too into that for a second. I had to pull myself out.
So
you can go down a rabbit hole with that stuff pretty quick.
Where's do you know where Wollersheim is available?
Mostly
Just a Wisconsin thing.
Mostly in just Wisconsin. They do have a couple places you can find it online. Link over there. Look at that, I got it right. Up in that corner, we'll put a link up there where you can find some of some other stuff. Mostly just in Wisconsin, like I said, they're kind of just really starting to roll out with some of their stuff. I think they started with bottled and bond. Kind of their whole premise was everything's going to be that way, and that we're just going to come out with it and kind of go that route. So
I tell you, I'd buy a lot of that.
Yes.
well,
That
I
could
enjoyed
be that's an extremely enjoyable whiskey. That's got a lot of flavor to it. I could drink a lot of that.
and this is what I was going to say with you guys being here. Imagine if it was at 65% where we had it, where Mike and I said we had it last year, and they do have that version. So I am looking at getting it was a fruit bomb, man. It was crazy how much you got apples in this. It started adding in some other flavors, some other fruits to it. It was almost like a fruit pie with a cool baked crust. It was it just kind of amped it up to that next level.
Yeah.
And am I correct that Wollersheim is the one that when they're coming out with the release, people are lined up like crazy?
There are a few of them like that, but yeah.
I know Blom Brothers is like that. People
Blom
line up
Brothers
down the
is,
road. Yeah.
well, they're in Illinois. Jay Henry is real close to Wollersheim. They both kind of have people standing at the door for whatever they're releasing. And Wollersheim is starting to do other stuff. Like I know they just did have a rye that was finished in port, and some other stuff that they're doing. They're starting to play with some of their own barrels and stuff, which is going to be kind of really interesting for what they're doing in the future. Plus, they will have some of their own brandy barrels eventually. And yeah, from what Philippe does, a day with him and Tom would be really fun. There's just no getting around it. It would be really fun, and there's a lot to learn, and they always seem very open and wanting to be giving of their time and knowledge and stuff. So they would be a great two to hang out, and that they're one of the places if people come to Wisconsin, if we're doing like a southern tour or southwest side of things, definitely one you want to stop in at and hit. And another thing nice, like Mike said, distillery / winery. usually both, the husband and wife are happy, or husband, wife and wife. Usually both people are happy at the end of the day when you go to something like that, because there's something for everybody.
Did you say husband, wife, and wife? So is there like visitors from Utah?
Yeah, hey, whoever's going with however you are situated with your significant other, there's something for everybody. And I think that's a great way to spend an afternoon, because how many times is it where a lot of times in the past, especially up in Green Bay, beer wasn't beloved by women as much as men here. So you'd go out and now it is, but there was a section if there was a winery nearby, it would be brewery or winery. Let's hit up 2 or 3 and let's make everyone happy today. So if you can make one stop, but hell, I'm in for that all the time. And speaking of Distill America, where we just met them, we're actually beginning interviewing Fred and Adam again coming up on the 23rd after we do the interview with Mash and Drum, talking about how they're doing Distill America this year in spite of COVID. And it is quite a feat. They did a nice redirect round, and they're going to be putting out basically, I think, about 8 hours of different interviews and seminars with people throughout the day on March 13th. And a few other like neat things going on, like they did with some of the classes. So it's only going to be $20, and it's going to be a lot of cool information, interviews with people. So stop in for that.
And that $20 goes to charity.
Yes, none of it's theirs.
Wow. None of it is theirs. It is a Distill America, as Fred said. It's they're all volunteers anyway, and this event, virtual event, is 100% for charity.
And they do have a couple places, and if anyone out there wants to be involved, even in your other state, they're setting up viewing parties at whiskey drinking establishments. There's about 5 or 6 in Madison. They want you to do it responsibly, but go out and support people who are businesses that are really in the fight for their lives with what's going on. Go help them for an afternoon. Yeah. You were probably going to be doing some of that anyways. Go help them out, and that's really what they're trying to do for the whole service industry with that. So if you are a restaurant out there, even in a different state, and you want to hook up and broadcast this live throughout the day, get a hold of Fred, of Adam and Casey, and they will hook you up with that, because it is something they're trying to push people to the next level and have a whole fun day. For me, hell, it's like my Super Bowl. I'm not gonna I didn't get that excited about it this year. It just didn't happen. I'm more excited about this. Now, Mike might have, but that was a big letdown for you, Kansas City folks.
That's an understatement.
For a second, I thought that was almost too low of a blow or something. You were really quiet for a second.
I wasn't in uniform playing.
But yeah, that. So just stopping then. Kevin, thank you for stopping in again with this wonderful whiskey. Yeah. Now, before we go, because we have some free time, and why not? We'll add this in and maybe throw it in there. Let's do the 4 Blood and just see what people have to say. Actually, I need to add a
Wisconsin.
I will tell you this one on the Wollersheim. I watered that down significantly, and on the nose you still get a lot of apple funk, but on the palate it took all the fruit and all the apple off, and it's all grain. It just brought the corn and the grain forward, and you get a lot more of the like nutmeg and cinnamon coming out in a way with the grain. So it's interesting how it just took the apple fruitiness right out of it and the sweetness.
All right, now I got to make 2 things, you son of a bitch. All right. Oh,
interesting.
That leather-bound book really kind of came more forward at this moment. Wow, with that watered down version.
Oh, I like that palate.
Yeah, that's a nice water. Nice little bit of punch, bite, like halfway through to the end. Goes away pretty nominally. A little heat on the after side. Yeah, that's nice. Watered down. Okay, the 4 custom blend of some Wisconsin whiskeys. I'm not a.
He's a kitty cat.
Out the
He's got a
nose.
hairball.
my first response is questionable.
Smooth.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, I did a funky face a minute ago when I took a sip of it. It's strange.
This is
Some things are not intended to be.
yeah, this is not one. This is a blend that we usually come up with very well. This is not one I would put together for people. This is a Rock Out Review blend.
It just keeps getting worse on the finish.
Yeah, like halfway through it, like just keep corking my tongue. Yeah.
It's like all we got was oak.
Yeah.
The oak from all four of them.
Yeah, and a weird sugar and no, not even close. Not even that one. We're not doing that.
Whatever you distilleries do, don't collaborate.
Yeah, not next to four of you together. Not okay. But other than that, I think the rest of them were individually they were pretty good. I'm gonna say I think Wollersheim was probably my favorite, but that's because of the whole depth of apple difference that you get in that one.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little more rounded and it has a nice complexity to it.
I would agree.
So, so everyone out there, remember it's not the size of the den; it's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3. Let's get some more. Clap your hands. Give some more.